All right, it's Daybreak, still Daybreak on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. First look at what's on the front pages as we get them. We start, of course, at our sister publication. That is this day. Let's look at what this day is saying on its headline. Obi to Nigerians. I'll be in charge of Nigeria. Hold me responsible. It had some riders there. Let's see what those riders say. It says he won't give excuses as president, but provide solutions. Reiterates commitment to transforming the nation. Outlines agenda. Declares era of borrowing for consumption. Over explains delay in releasing his manifesto, and clarifies he didn't offer anything to Kwankwaso. Then we have here Debanjo. It's Igbo's right to produce next president. Well, talking about right. Well, Emmanuel will be here to talk about whether is anybody's right. World Bank President, Nigeria in urgent need to strengthen fiscal management. And then just in the white strip there, just below the This Day logo, Shehu, lack of physical economy, funding gaps, threatening independence of RMAFC. Yeah.
Let's take a look at the headlines in the Punch newspaper this morning. FG Domestic Airlines legal battle kicks off Thursday. And Ogun PDP Supreme Court orders, just a moment there, Supreme Court orders retrial. Party crisis worsens. And also impeachment. New Ekiti Speaker successor differ. And hoodlums invade Atiku rally supporters injured. Petrol, electricity subsidies hurting poor Nigerians, says the World Bank.
All right, let's look at the Nation newspaper. Why Atiku PDP will lose in 2023 by Kwankwaso of the Kwankwasia movement. Well, this is why he said that. He said nobody can win presidential poll without Lagos, Kano, Rivers votes. No indication we will lose. PDP tells NMPP candidate. PDP replying him. Ekiti Assembly gets new speaker. World Bank advises federal government on physical adjustments. Saka of the Gunners. Arsenal scores brace in England win. And Senegal lose to Holland. More of a inexperience because they had a good game, but then they lost. All right, how 1 million man PVC march for Tinubu shut down Kano State. You can find it on page 9. That's from The Nation.
And from The Nation, well, let's take a look at the headlines in the Guardian newspaper this morning. Buhari reignites politics of oil and not close to another election. And Obi in 2023 will need a competent and fit leader. And also in the Guardian this morning, government abduct over 100 in Zamfara, and you find that in page 3 of the Guardian. And confusion as Ekiti Assembly elects another speaker within 6 days, and that's in page 5 in the Guardian newspaper of today. Southeast youths call for Soludo's impeachment, and that's on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper.
Well, that's funny. All right, we'll look at leadership. I guess they will go to foreign papers, I guess. Well, hope rises as 16 states vote for local government autonomy. This is concerning constitutional amendment. While governors meet on economy, NBS poverty report today. 2 months after leadership inquiry, U.S. Embassy tongue-tied over Catho's death. Leadership is still on this particular issue. Well, police foil kidnap attempt, rescue 76 victims in Kaduna, and don't fight for any politician. Sultan Khan, they're advising Nigerians. Qatar 2022, England thrash Iran. Senegal lose to Holland 6-2, and then of course 2-0.
Just before we come to the foreign papers, let's lastly take a look at the Daily Sun. The headlines: 2023, don't blame anybody if you sabotage or be nothing else, tells Southeast. And 2023 still, U.S. reaffirms visa ban for election riggers and dozens BVAs. And INEC admits challenges in protecting server from hackers. Ekiti Assembly impeaches Speaker Aribi Sogan 6 days after assuming office. And also APC plotting to compromise voters, says COP. An opinion piece there in Daily Sun this morning.
All right, to the foreign papers. We'll start with Financial Times. Financial Times, and then you look at that picture of Saka, Bellingham, Kane, and of course the Chelsea guy there leaping for joy at scoring a goal. Win or lose, FIFA punctures footballers' hopes of equal rights gesture at World Cup in Qatar. Push against Chapek opens eager second act at Disney. And then of course you look down just below the picture there. Sunak rules out Swiss-style EU deal as Tories fear Hunt aims to ditch barriers.
Oh, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello now for the press analysis. Thank you for always joining us. And we'll begin with the major headline in this day this morning, Emmanuel. Obi to Nigerians, I'll be in charge of Nigeria. Hold me responsible. Well, basically, that's the whole essence of government. Everyone is asking Nigerians to hold them responsible. I mean, what are we not hearing here that Obi is trying to say? Emmanuel.
Yeah, well, he's touching on something very, very, very important, which is the fact that he's saying, look, I will be in charge. You agree with me that what people have blamed this last, or rather this passing out administration is that no one was in charge. At one point, with people actually even questioning whether the president is actually the one in the villa, because things were really going, out of control. So a statement like this is both a rebuke on the way government is being run out here, and also an affirmation that, look, there can be good leadership. It's Obi trying to just present himself as the leader that will be in charge from day one. And he's saying that before the Nigerian Guild of Editors. And it's a good thing that this day is providing, just like the Nigerian Guild of Editors, providing everybody a base, to talk about what they want to talk about, or when they're talking about their ideas. And that is the kind of balance and the kind of journalism expected in this period, providing the platform. So I think we've reported clearly what everyone has said at the Guild of Editors, and it's Obi's turn. And in his own case, he's talking about leadership now. He went on and on to talk about the sort of thing that he likes talking about, the fact that he's competent, he's done those things in a number of states, and that people can go and verify. Not really new things altogether, but we see an insight into his passion. And he talks about the obedient movement. He talks about funding too. And he said, look, he's not collecting money from anyone. He said Aisha Yusuf is in charge of, the funding. And that's one thing you don't hear a lot of these candidates talking about. Who is funding their campaign? How are they funding it? It's very important.
And also he made emphasis about not offering any money to Kwankwaso, asking him to step down. That was a very important information that he put out there.
It is. And it's still talking about funding, the crisis of money. Because the campaign, your government is not going to be better than the campaign. The kind of campaign you run, the transparency that your campaign, exhibits, the kind of honesty and the kind of decency that your campaign, is able to put out there is, to some extent, the kind of government you are going to run. If you are getting it wrong at the level of campaign funding, or even the language or the nature of your campaign, if it's aggressive, it's violent, and if it's already corrupt, like Obi said, if they can't get it right at the level of campaign funding, what's the essence in talking about decency and transparency? So he's saying that, look, this is the kind of campaign I'm running in that conversation with the Nigerian Guild of Editors. But beyond the campaign, he also talk about his kind of person. He say he will be in charge. He will not pass the buck. He will not blame anyone. I think again it's a swipe at the APC regime that came and completely said that it's the PDP problem, and Lai Mohammed talked about the PDP problem for a very long time, saying that all the problem are part of it. He said, look, you are not hired to come and talk about the problem, you are hired to come and talk about the solution. And that if the Nigerian people should hire him, he would dwell more on the solution instead of reminding everyone of who caused the problem or where to put the blame. He will fix the problem rather than fixing the blame. I think that's a very punching thing to say.
Is that what they're really saying? Or that if you don't know where you're coming from, you might not be able to get to where you're going to? So you look your past to adjust for your future.
Hey, it's not saying that there won't be a past. It's saying that he's just not going to talk about it. He's not going to dwell on it.
Let me go to, still on this day, the Nation, two interesting stories. This question of entitlement, that's how it looks like. Adebanjo, it's Igbo's right to produce next president. I want you to look at that. Doesn't it sound like entitlement mentality? And then the Nation, why Atiku, PDP, will lose in 2023 by Kwankwaso. He talks about if you can't win Lagos, if you can't win Rivers votes, And if you can win Kano votes, forget it.
Well, yeah, but the nation is doubling down on its aggressive reporting on Atiku, and maybe it has almost become an editorial policy now to play up anything that it seemed to be an attack on the PDP and Atiku. But Kwankwaso was just stating bare fact that I think everyone is aware of that. Look, these are the heavy hitters. These are the heavy areas where you need votes. And it's not just about Atiku or the PDP. It's about every other political party there. It's a game of numbers. So Kwankwaso is just stating the obvious that, look, you need to get in the big guns and the big numbers of Kano and Lagos State, and where you have this chunk of votes. He said, look, if you don't have a chunk of all of these, there's no realistic path to grabbing power. In this Nigerian Guild of Editors conference with Peter Obi, he was asked very clearly about that. He was asked, what's your path to power? And he said, well, he's counting on the people. But Kwankwaso is saying that, yes, that's also important, the numbers are important, but it's also targeting the areas where you have this chunk of votes, and he's saying if you don't get control of the votes in this area, you probably will not make it. It's about the numbers, and that's what Kwankwaso is talking about. Talking about the rights of the Igbos. Afenifere, or the leader of Afenifere, or that faction of Afenifere, has been consistent in saying this. He's looking at this race from the historical point of view and saying that, look, if there's going to be any sense of fairness, if we're going to have a country, if we're going to talk about the unity and the stability of this country, it's the turn of the Igbos. But you're right, unfortunately, even the candidate himself, the Obi himself, is not running on that platform. He's not running on the platform of saying, look, I'm an Igbo, you have to be. saying he's a pan-Nigerian kind of, he's trying to make that pan-Nigerian appeal, because the Igbos alone cannot produce a president. They will need the support of all the other sides to be able to produce the next leader. So, but what the Afenifere leader is saying is that what is fair, and that all the other parts have been presidents in the past, and that is the turn of the Igbos.
Let's come to the Daily Sun. Interesting headline there about the Daily Sun. 2023 U.S. reaffirms visa ban for election riggers and endorses the BVH, while INEC is also admitting challenges in protecting server from hackers. INEC lately has been putting out a whole lot of concerns about the 2023 election, and here is another one from them saying they cannot guarantee their server from hackers. Let's contemplate this, Emmanuel, if you will.
Well, that's a scary thing to contemplate, Benny, because, I mean, we need the INEC to get this right. And now a lot of people say that it's not just this election, but the entire generation, next generation, will be depending on what. It's a heavy burden on what INEC is able to do and not able to do. So it's a good thing when we hear INEC talking, but we need to hear them really reaffirming that, look, they can do, they can do this job. And it's a good thing that they are beginning to understand the problems that are there. Last week, we were looking at those, over-bloated registered lists and the underage voters that, they were discovered, and even some rogue staff of the INEC who they were able to pick out. We need to hear those kind of positive reinforcement and reassurances that INEC can actually get to do this. Everyone is excited about the beavers. It's the first time that a lot of people think that their vote will count, and that it doesn't really matter who, that their vote will count in a very scientific, technology-driven kind of election. And that the fact that the US is saying that, look, we're going to punish election rigor, that's a very strong one. It reinforces, the base of our elections. But we don't need the US to say they will have to punish election riggers before we know the right thing to do, as we don't say that about any other elections in the world. But the fact that the world is taking a very, a closer look at our democracy is also, on one hand, it's heartwarming, but of course, it begs the question of independence and the fact that our ability to do our things ourselves. But the INEC is there telling us that, look, these elections will be technology-driven.
Nigeria is big. I mean, if Nigeria gets it right, if Nigeria coughs, Africa begins to experience some cold. So it's very important. Well, the Punch, it says politicians will use you and dump you. This is IG warning policemen.
That's a strong warning.
Why are you laughing? Are you a politician?
No, well, I'm just thinking about there's something else that is on my mind. When you say that, but Nigerians will read this and say, well, it rings true in many situations where, and it's not just even during elections, but of course how for instance, state executive use decent policemen to get around doing some nefarious things. And, this IG has done his best in that direction. Trying to make the force more professional, that they are not going to be used. A situation where you have policemen holding bags of big men around or guarding the kids of very, very rich people and all of that. The things that you don't see anywhere else unless only in Nigeria, in some failed countries. So he's saying that, look, the police should remain professional, and we need them to be really professional as we go into these elections, not to be used. And he's right, they'll be used and dumped. Because at the end of the day, it's about their career, it's about their professionalism, it's also about their records as a force. So this is him trying to make them have some kind of regard for the higher values of the profession and say, look, don't just become lackeys in the hands of a politician. It's a warning and a call that has to be echoed again and again.
Now, Emmanuel, if it will, under 60 seconds, this borders on the 1999 Constitution as amended in the leadership, the big headline in the leadership this morning. Hope rises as 16 states vote for local government autonomy, and this borders on the Constitution amendment. I mean, isn't it just about time the local governments are granted this autonomy? We've been on this for far too long.
Too long, yeah.
President even signed the Executive Order 10, if I'm correct. Was it the one he signed?
Well, the funny thing is that you find out that it's the biggest beneficiaries of this, or who are going to be the beneficiaries of this, that are actually kicking. In most cases, you see State Assembly, for instance, who are kicking against, the Legislative House of Assembly or the autonomy. And then, but if this happened, local government be on their own. The idea that the notion that money can go straight from the federal pulse to the local government, it's going to be very revolutionary. It will change a whole lot of things, and it's just about time. Because as you have it now, the local governments are dead, and a sum total of that crisis at the local government is what translates into the problem you have in Nigeria. But if the local governments are alive and doing very well, and chairmen are in their local government instead of the state capital or elsewhere, I think we'll be getting somewhere.
And that's the grassroots. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bello, for the paper review. We continue. We'll take a break and come back. Let's hear your view on all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at Arise TV. You can join today's conversation also using the hashtag Arise Day Break.